Welcome. This is HRS TV. I'm Jody Hurwitz, President-elect, and this is Advocacy in Action. Today, my guest is Dr. Mark Schoenfeld. He's Professor of Clinical Medicine at Yale University School of Medicine. Welcome.
Thank you, Jody.
So today, I think we're going to get a little history about how RVUs came to be. I think you're a great person to do this, and tell us what you can.
Well, as you know, years ago, the Medicare beneficiary program was under a lot of scrutiny. There was a lot of concern about fraud, waste, and abuse in this, leading to a paper from the Hines Commission, Senator Hines from Pennsylvania. And ultimately, it was tasked to reevaluate the way reimbursement was taking place. And whereas it had always been fee for practice for procedures, ultimately what was developed was the RVUs system. This came out of Harvard in the 1990s, and in fact a seminal paper appeared in the New England Journal of Medicine evaluating this. And ironically, the whole point was to compare one procedure versus another, recognizing that the government had a certain set amount of monies available to distribute to their Medicare beneficiaries. The pie had to be cut, and therefore what better way to do that is to compare one procedural code to another. And wouldn't you know it, in the New England Journal of Medicine article, among others, it was first disclosed that pacemakers were the most overvalued procedure in all of CPT land, and we took the greatest hit as far as that goes back in the 1990s. So that's really where RVUs started. Basically, they developed a panel that was empowered by the American Medical Association, the AMA, that would be the intermediary with then HCFA, the Healthcare Financing Administration, which then became the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which we know as CMS. On the RUC committee, there have been a minimum of 29 full-time members. And we at HRS don't have an official member there, but we have advisors. The only thing that had allowed us in recent years to serve on this was because we had enough percentage of our membership that were members of AMA. This has been a continual struggle in order to have representation, because as the saying goes, if you're not at the table, it is quite likely you will be the meal. So it was very paramount for us to have that. There's separately a CPT committee that develops the codes that identifies that which we do. And it's the RUC's purpose to value what the CPT codes are that come on a regular basis. And there are a number of things that trigger these valuations, and I can go over that at any point.
Okay, so this is for all of medicine, not just obviously cardiology or electrophysiology.
Correct.
Okay.
But in our efforts, the American College of Cardiology does have a seat at the table. We, over many years, have thankfully been working very closely with ACC to advise them in terms of how the valuation should go. There are a number of things that trigger these valuations. Number one is if there is new technology that has been developed. So, for example, I've been involved with this process, well, either on the ACC or on the FHRS time for decades, but some of the more recent codes have been subcutaneous defibrillators, for example, leadless pacemakers. Whenever there's new technology, there's a new CPT code that becomes necessary to value. There are CPT-3 investigational codes that are more on a research basis before they become elevated to a CPT-1 code. And once that happens, a new value has to be associated with it through the RUC. If a code has not been recently valued or a family of codes, there is usually a time period where these codes will necessarily have to be revalued. Case in point, it'll be very likely that the pacemaker codes and defibrillator codes, which have not been recently valued, will come under scrutiny. And this is particularly germane to where we go from here in our ablation code and processing. And then also, very importantly, if CMS finds out that more than 75% of codes are done conjointly, then they will ask us to bundle these codes into a new code. And it's this process that has engendered a good deal of the controversy regarding the most recent ablation codes. And volumes come into play as well. So that if CMS has detected that one code or family of codes is exceeding projected volumes, then that will clearly come under valuation. All of these things are what trigger the RUC valuations. The RUC makes its recommendation among its panel of 29 and or more voting members. And this is a very intense, deliberative process where we, through HRS and conjointly with ACC, are asked to propose codes, and these are done in comparison to established codes. These codes are based on the amount of time it takes, the intensity, and other things such as malpractice, risk likelihood, etc. And this is what's involved in the valuations. The valuations are presented to CMS, and CMS makes a decision. In past years, CMS accepted more than 90% of the RUC's determinations. More recently, and sadly, that value has gone down probably to 75% or perhaps less. Witness what's been going on with the ablation codes. CMS in no way is constrained to take the RUC valuations, but right now, up until recently, that is the only process we have.
Right. So it's really interesting to learn all that. Thank you very much. You're a great historian. I have to say it's a little reassuring that the RUC process takes into consideration complexity and risk, because so far mostly what we've heard is that a lot of these valuations are done solely on time. It would be nice if there was a comparison to a like procedure. So for time's sake, I suspect that we shall end here. It sounds like there's a lot more we have to discuss, and definitely we need to keep on our toes with potentially oncoming issues with device codes. So thank you so much for being here and educating us, and we look forward to more conversations with you in the future.
Thank you, Jody.